Before potatoes conquered Europe, there was a root crop that everyone grew. It was sweeter, more nutritious, easier to grow. It produced reliable harvests without the diseases that devastated potato crops. It was a staple food across Europe for over 1,000 years. Then, potatoes arrived from the Americas, and within 200 years, this superior root crop vanished from farms and gardens, not because it stopped working, not because it became less productive, but because it didn't fit the industrial agriculture model that was emerging. This is Skirret, the root crop that beat potatoes in every way that mattered for small farmers. And I'm about to show you exactly why they made sure you forgot it existed. Let me introduce you to Skirret, because most people under 60 have never heard of it, and that's not an accident. Skirret is a perennial root vegetable. It looks like a cluster of white carrots growing from a central crown. The roots are sweet, nutty, and have a flavor somewhere between carrots and parsnips with a hint of chestnut. They were considered a delicacy in medieval and Renaissance Europe. The Romans grew it. They called it Caesar. Medieval monasteries cultivated it ostensibly. Tudor England served it at royal banquets. It was grown in cottage gardens across Europe for over a millennium. This wasn't some obscure specialty crop. This was a food staple. And here's what made it valuable. Skirret is perennial. You plant it once and it produces for years. Every spring it sends up new growth. Every fall you harvest roots. The plant divides and expands over time, giving you more production each year without replanting. Compare that to potatoes, which are annuals. You plant potatoes every single year. You save seed potatoes or buy new ones. You till the ground, you plant, you harvest, and you start over the next year. It's constant work. Skirret required almost no work. Plant it once in a corner of your garden, and it fed you for a decade. Harvest some roots each fall. Leave some to regrow. The plant maintained itself. Perfect for subsistence farmers who couldn't afford to dedicate time and land to annual crops. It was also more nutritious than potatoes, higher in vitamins and minerals. The sweet flavor meant it was useful in both savory and sweet dishes. It could be boiled, roasted, fried, or eaten raw. It stored well through winter, and it never got the diseases that wiped out potato crops. The Irish potato famine killed 1 million people because potatoes were susceptible to blight. Skirret doesn't get blight. If European farmers had stuck with Skirret instead of switching to potatoes, that famine wouldn't have happened. Think about that. An entire catastrophe caused by replacing a resilient perennial with a vulnerable annual. But potatoes won anyway, not because they were better, because they fit industrial agriculture better, because you could grow massive fields of identical crops, because seed companies could sell seed potatoes every year, because uniformity was valued over resilience. Skirret was abandoned. By 1900, it was nearly extinct in cultivation. A few old gardens kept it alive. A few seed savers preserved it. But it went from essential staple to historical curiosity in just 2 generations. So why did Skirret disappear if it was superior in so many ways? The answer reveals everything wrong with how we think about agriculture. First, Skirret doesn't scale to industrial farming. The roots grow in clusters from a central crown. They're not uniform. Some are thick, some are thin, some are straight, some are curved. You can't mechanically harvest them efficiently. You need to dig them by hand or with a fork, carefully separating the roots from the crown. Potatoes, on the other hand, are perfect for mechanization. Uniform tubers, mechanical planters, mechanical harvesters. You can farm thousands of acres with minimal labor. From an industrial efficiency standpoint, potatoes are vastly superior. But here's the thing. Most people aren't industrial farmers. Most gardeners and small farmers don't need crops that work for 1,000-acre operations. They need crops that are productive, resilient, and low maintenance for small spaces. Skirret is perfect for that. Potatoes aren't. Second, Skirret doesn't create dependency. It's perennial. Once you have it forever. It divides itself, creating more plants. You never need to buy seeds or planting stock again. You can share divisions with neighbors, and everyone has their own self-perpetuating food source. The emerging agricultural industry in the 1800s needed crops that created annual dependency. Seed companies, equipment manufacturers, and input suppliers all profit from annual crops that require constant purchasing. Perennial crops that maintain themselves are terrible for that business model. Third, Skirret takes time to establish. The first year, you get modest roots. Second year is better. Third year and beyond, you get abundant harvests. But modern agriculture values quick returns. Annual crops that produce heavily in one season. Skirret requires patience, which doesn't fit the mindset of extraction and maximum short-term profit. And finally, Skirret requires knowledge. You need to know how to divide the crown without killing it, how to harvest roots while leaving enough to regrow, how to manage a perennial crop over years. That knowledge was passed down in families and communities. When industrial agriculture disrupted traditional farming, that knowledge was lost. Potatoes are simple: plant, harvest, repeat. Anyone can do it with minimal knowledge. That simplicity made them perfect for the standardization that industrial agriculture required. So Skirret was abandoned, not promoted, not taught, not included in seed catalogs. Within 2 generations, it went from common to forgotten. And millions of people lost access to a superior food crop because it didn't serve industrial interests. Let's talk about why Skirret actually is better than potatoes for home gardens and small farms. Because this isn't nostalgia, this is practical superiority. First, Skirret is perennial. I keep emphasizing this because it's transformative. Imagine planting a food crop once and harvesting it for 10 to 15 years. That's what Skirret offers. No tilling, no replanting, minimal maintenance, just harvest, and it regrows. Second, Skirret has better nutrition than potatoes. It's higher in vitamin C, higher in minerals, and contains more dietary fiber. The nutritional density is significantly better. You're getting more nutrition per calorie and per pound. Third, the flavor is superior. Potatoes are bland. They're a starchy vehicle for other flavors. Skirret is naturally sweet and flavorful. It tastes good on its own. Medieval cooks knew this. Skirret was served at feasts not because it was cheap, but because it was delicious. Fourth, Skirret is resistant. Potatoes get blight, scab, rot, and numerous other diseases. They're susceptible to pests like Colorado potato beetles. Skirret has virtually no pest or disease problems. It's remarkably trouble-free. Fifth, Skirret tolerates poor soil. It grows in conditions where potatoes would fail. It doesn't need rich, heavily amended soil. It's not picky about pH. It adapts to what you have. For subsistence farmers on marginal land, this was crucial. Sixth, Skirret produces in shade. Not deep shade, but partial shade that would reduce potato yields significantly. If you have a partially shaded garden, Skirret works where potatoes wouldn't. And seventh, Skirret stores well. The roots can be left in the ground all winter and harvested as needed. Or they can be dug and stored like other root crops. They last months in proper storage, food security through the entire winter from a perennial crop that requires minimal space. The only real disadvantage is that Skirret has a thin fibrous core in each root that should be removed before eating. It's not difficult, just a minor preparation step. You split the root and pull out the core, that's it. But apparently that was too much inconvenience for industrial agriculture. So we got potatoes instead. Annual disease-prone, less nutritious, bland, but uniform and easy to mechanize. That's the trade-off we made. Convenience for corporations in exchange for quality and resilience for individuals. How you grow Skirret. Finding it is the hardest part. Most nurseries don't carry it. Search specialty seed companies focusing on heirloom vegetables, or find someone growing it and ask for a division. Skirret grows from seed or divisions. Seeds are slow, divisions are faster and easier. If you can get established plants or root divisions, start there. Plant early spring or fall. Full sun to partial shade. Tolerates various conditions but prefers consistent moisture and good drainage. Space plants 12 inches apart. Year 1, let it establish. Don't harvest. Let it develop strong roots. Year 2, light harvest. Leave some roots to continue growing. Year 3, plus, harvest freely, fully established and productive. To harvest, dig around, plant with a fork, lift the crown, take what you need, leaving at least a third of roots attached. Replant the crown. It will regrow. To divide, dig up established crown in spring or fall, separate into sections with roots and growth buds, replant. Now you have multiple plants, share extras, maintenance, largely maintenance-free, water during establishment and dry spells, mulch to suppress weeds and retain moisture, no fertilizing, pest control, or disease management needed. Plants die back in winter, regrow in spring. Roots are sweetest after frost. Cold converts starches to sugars. Harvest late fall through winter if ground doesn't freeze hard into early spring before new growth. To prepare, wash, peel, if desired, split lengthwise, remove fibrous core, roast, boil, and mash, add to stews, stir-fry, or eat raw thinly sliced in salads. Sweet and nutty flavor. Needs minimal seasoning. Skirret isn't unique. It's part of a pattern. Superior crops replaced by inferior ones because inferior ones serve industrial interests better. Skirret replaced by potatoes. Both root crops, one perennial and resilient, the other annual and disease-prone. The annual one, amaranth, replaced by wheat. Higher protein, more complete amino acids, grows in harsh conditions. But wheat makes better industrial bread and creates seed dependency. Jerusalem artichokes replaced by potatoes. Perennial, multiply aggressively, needs zero inputs. But they're too productive, and farmers can't get rid of them. That's a feature, not a bug. Perennial grains replaced by annuals, perennial wheat, rice, rye, exist. But for 10,000 years, we've used annuals requiring replanting yearly. See the pattern? Perennials replaced by annuals. Resilient replaced by vulnerable. Self-maintaining replaced by input-dependent. Diverse replaced by monoculture. Every time, the change serves industrial interests and harms individual food security. Every time, we lose resilience, nutrition, and independence in exchange for corporate profit and uniformity. Skirret is one example, a perfect example. A crop that fed people reliably for over 1,000 years, replaced by a crop that caused famines because the inferior crop fit the industrial model better. Now, facing climate change, soil degradation, and food insecurity, we're rediscovering these lost crops. Realizing our ancestors weren't stupid, they grew these for good reasons, reasons that matter more now than ever. That root crop that beat potatoes but disappeared anyway, that's Skirret. It's still here, barely kept alive by seed savers and heirloom gardeners who refuse to let it vanish. It produces for a decade from one planting, more nutritious than potatoes, disease-resistant, low-maintenance, delicious, everything a home gardener or small farmer would want. They made sure you forgot it existed, because perennial crops that maintain themselves don't create dependency, don't require annual seed purchases, don't fit industrial models. But you don't need permission. You can grow Skirret, save seeds of forgotten crops, build food security through diversity and resilience instead of monoculture and vulnerability. Find Skirret, plant it, let it establish. Harvest for years, share divisions, spread it, bring it back from extinction's edge. This is lost green knowledge returning when we need it. The crops they discarded are solutions to problems they created. Plant Skirret, prove perennials, beat annuals, resilience beats vulnerability, independence beats dependency, one forgotten root crop at a time. We take back our food systems,